Bitcoin is a currency of fear. You own Bitcoin because you're frightened of your security in your country. You own Bitcoin because you're frightened of the debasement of your currency.
The US government and the way that it's financed and structured cannot exist if Bitcoin becomes the global dominant form of money. They're dramatically underestimating Bitcoin. I think they think Bitcoin is a toy. People are used to the idea that he who controls the money controls the governance. In Bitcoin, it doesn't work like that. We have like a flame inside of us, and some of us would die for Bitcoin.
Two visions collide. Wall Street says Bitcoin is just a dumb rock, digital gold, and a hedge born of fear. But Bitcoiners know it's freedom money, defended at all costs, and that it's fueling the next evolution in human flourishing. And while the US government embraces it, could they be unknowingly ushering in their own demise? Welcome to No Second Best, the show where conviction meets reality, and reality points straight to Bitcoin. I'm your host, Hurley. Now let's get into it. Now, there's no question we are living through an absolute explosion in corporate and institutional Bitcoin adoption. We have BlackRock and Fidelity with massively successful ETFs, and we have huge companies leveraging cheap debt to add hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin to their growing treasuries. And even politically, things have taken a totally unprecedented turn, from the US Strategic Bitcoin Reserve to regulatory green lights that nobody would have imagined just a few years ago. But here's the question we need to ask. Does the US government actually understand what they're supporting? Or are they dramatically underestimating what Bitcoin really is? To understand what I mean, let's look at this clip of Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock, from Citi's Legends Live interview series last week.
I was on a panel in Washington with Jamie Dimon, and he was pissing all over Bitcoin, and I piled on and said, Bitcoin is the currency for money launderers and thieves. So I did say that in 2017. Yep. But during COVID, when I had more free time to think about, I actually went on a journey, and I talked to a lot of people who were true believers. I met this woman from Afghanistan who uses Bitcoin to pay women workers in Afghanistan, and the Taliban, forbids women to work. And the banking system is controlled by the Taliban, but she was using Bitcoin to reward women. And I was just learning all the different applications. And I came to the view that there's a lot of legitimacy with Bitcoin. Certainly the technology around, the blockchain around Bitcoin was pretty unrivaled, and it still is. And I became a believer in a, not like it's going to be a currency, but right. I believe that there's a role for it like digital gold. And since most of BlackRock's business is based on long-termism, and I always raise the question, why would anybody invest in a 20 or 30-year outcome unless you believe the 20 or 30-year outcome is going to be good? Because if you didn't believe in over a 20, 30-year horizon that those long-term investments would be better, you would keep all your money in a bank account or in a mattress. And so, all our business is based on hope. And I said, you know what, Bitcoin is a currency of fear. You own Bitcoin because you're frightened of your security in your country. You own Bitcoin because you're frightened of the debasement of your currency. What an interesting, despite that it's illegal for Chinese to own Bitcoin, 20% of all Bitcoin ownership is Chinese.
So amazingly, Fink admits that he's gone from calling Bitcoin the tool of criminals to a full-on believer. That's obviously a huge shift that we all saw play out in the lead up to these ETFs being approved. But notice how he quantifies that belief. He doesn't see Bitcoin as a viable currency or money. He doesn't see it ever becoming the base layer of a new monetary system. To him, it's digital gold, a passive store of value. But then, ironically, he does frame it as a currency, but as a currency of fear. Fink is saying you only buy Bitcoin if you're frightened. Frightened of currency debasement, frightened of your government, or frightened of the future. That framing tells you everything you need to know. Wall Street and even Washington are still boxing Bitcoin in as a commodity, an investment, a hedge. They want it to be a dumb rock, just like gold. Something people can hold in a portfolio, but not something that actually threatens the system itself. But what if they're wrong? What if they're viewing it through a very short-sighted lens? Here's Francis Pouliot, OG Bitcoin advocate and CEO of Canada's Bull Bitcoin, on You're the Voice with Efrat Fennison.
The US government and the way that it's financed and structured cannot exist if Bitcoin becomes the global dominant form of money. And the fact that you have the US administration supporting Bitcoin it's almost like, shh, don't.
I
like,
know, don't talk too loudly.
Like, should we tell them that we're destroying them? Like, and then that if they leave us alone, we're gonna,
We're actually
or should
eventually.
or should we pretend that we're on the same team? Like, what should we do? Like, I never thought that they would support their own doom, but I think that they're dramatically underestimating Bitcoin. I think they think Bitcoin is a toy. You know, like Trump at the Bitcoin conference and when he announced, I don't know, this is
play with your Bitcoin.
have fun with your crypto. You know,
have
it's
fun
like,
with your Bitcoin.
Have fun with
he
your little
said.
Bitcoin.
Like,
he clearly did not understand like what we're doing, which is great. And like other companies like BlackRock, you know, you cannot separate BlackRock from government. Like they are the financial establishment. However, contrary to politicians, they are intelligent and they hedge their bets, right? That's what they do. They hedge, you know, they're a hedge fund. So, you know, so they hedge. And I think that they have a selfish reason to get into Bitcoin. But people are used to the idea that he who controls the money controls the governance. In Bitcoin, it doesn't work like that, right? Bitcoin is not proof of stake. It's not Ethereum. Like you can have 1 million Bitcoins and
still not have the power.
And how can I back up this claim? Because it happened in 2017. Because you had Roger, the guy who had the most Bitcoin in the world, and Brian Armstrong and Coinbase and all these guys that combined had way more Bitcoins than Saylor. Like they had way more Bitcoins than Saylor and BlackRock. Like all of these early crypto VCs, like just, Barry Silbert and all these guys, like they were sitting on stashes of million plus Bitcoins. They tried to take it over. I'm not afraid of BlackRock. I'm not afraid of Trump taking over Bitcoin. It's just not something that we always have to be vigilant because Bitcoin is an organism, and it's like an organism being attacked by a virus. Like we need antibodies to fight that, right? And the antibodies are the cypherpunks, right, within the ecosystem. So we have to be vigilant and develop a healthy culture of resistance to co-option. If all Bitcoin users are apathetic, Bitcoin can be co-opted.
Absolutely.
But we're not, right? And why are we not? It's because we have like a flame inside of us. And like, how are you sure that this flame is going to remain alive forever? I mean, come to a Bitcoin conference.
Exactly.
Meet us and you'll understand that like some of us would die for Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Francis cuts straight through the illusion. The US financial model can't survive if Bitcoin actually wins as money. And even if BlackRock or Washington or some billionaire realized Bitcoin's true power and tried to co-opt it, they can't. And we saw this play out in the block size wars. Back in 2017, some of the biggest Bitcoin holders in the world tried to force changes to the rules. They threw tons of capital, influence, and propaganda at it, and still they lost. Because Bitcoin's governance isn't for sale. Unlike proof-of-stake consensus mechanisms like Ethereum, in Bitcoin, nodes, not capital, enforce the rules. That's why Francis describes Bitcoin as an organism. When it's attacked, antibodies emerge. The cypherpunks, the plebs, the developers. People willing to stand up and defend it. Some, as Francis points out, even willing to die for it. This is what Larry Fink and the US government still don't see. They seem to think Bitcoin is passive, but it does fight back. And this resilience isn't just ideological. Avik Roy of the Bitcoin Policy Institute explains on the Hurlrate podcast how Bitcoin's defenses are growing stronger in practice.
Let me pose one more question to you, Avik, because I'm really enjoying hearing your point of view here. What do you view as more strategically important to the United States long term, holding Bitcoin themselves or fostering the adoption and use within its own economy and markets?
Definitely the latter. I mean, they're both important. I think I look at the first one as kind of a leading indicator into the latter. But what's most important, and this is one of a new paper I just published recently as part of the Satoshi Papers, a book that we published at the through Bitcoin Media and the Texas Bitcoin Foundation. The chapter that I wrote in that book you can get at our website. It's the title of the free app version is 3 Scenarios of How a U.S. Fiscal Crisis Could Harm Ordinary Americans. And it's about basically thinking about if there's a fiscal crisis in the future, how would the government, in theory, try to crack down on Bitcoin and make it less useful? And the takeaway from this piece in terms of like how to make Bitcoin resilient to that potential crisis in the future is, as you said, Ben, make Bitcoin more useful. The more people that own Bitcoin and use it and or own or in their portfolios own Bitcoin related businesses or Bitcoin treasury companies, whatever it is, the more people are connected to Bitcoin success directly or indirectly, the harder it is politically to take away. Another thing that I argue in the piece that's a bit of a more subtle point, but I think it's going to be very important over the long term, is the potential rise of and the development of decentralized peer-to-peer exchanges of US dollars, whether in stablecoin form or cash form, for Bitcoin. Meaning it's not enough that the Bitcoin itself is a censorship-resistant peer-to-peer network for transmitting value. That's great. That's of course, the breakthrough from the white paper. But if we want more and more people to be able to migrate to a Bitcoin-based ecosystem and avoid the capital controls that may potentially arise in the future, if you want to make Bitcoin resilient to that potential crackdown in the future, what you also have to do is make it so that people can exchange dollars and other fiat currencies for Bitcoin in a censorship-resistant way. So the technology for that doesn't exactly exist yet, but there are people working on it. And I would say the more the Bitcoin community can be aware that that's an important problem to solve, the more resilient we'll be to that outcome in the future. And the benefit of that is, let's say 10 years from now that environment exists where you can transmit dollars into Bitcoin and vice versa without the government being able to censor those transactions. Then the government won't even bother to try to censor those transactions because they know they won't be able to, and we won't then therefore have a repeat of what happened in the 30s with gold and FDR.
Avik's point is crucial. The more people that own and use Bitcoin, the more resilient it becomes. And when peer-to-peer rails make it impossible to censor on and off ramps, like exchanging dollars into Bitcoin and vice versa, then even governments won't bother trying, because they'll know they can't win. And that's how you avoid a repeat of FDR's gold confiscation in the 1930s. You can't ban something that's woven into portfolios, businesses, and communities, and that resists censorship at the protocol level. So let's bring this full circle. Larry Fink calls Bitcoin a currency of fear, but Bitcoiners know the truth. It's a currency of hope. Hope for property rights and fairness. Hope for just weights and measures. Hope for dignity in a system where no central authority can rig the rules. Michael Saylor famously calls Bitcoiners a swarm of cyber hornets. That swarm isn't motivated by fear. It's fueled by conviction. Conviction that Bitcoin is incorruptible money and the foundation of a more just world. And if you want to build a strategic position in Bitcoin with the same conviction we talk about here on this show every week, check out Swan Private. Swan Private helps high net worth individuals and businesses accumulate Bitcoin with a long-term strategy geared towards generational wealth. Reach out at swan.com/no-second-best to start your journey today. And don't forget, BTC in DC is coming up September 30th to October 1st at the Kennedy Center in Washington. This is where builders, executives, and policymakers are shaping Bitcoin's future in real time. Grab your tickets before they sell out at btcindc.com and use promo code SWAN for 10% off. And finally, a quick shout out to Mara, the world's largest publicly traded Bitcoin miner, for supporting this show and for helping make Bitcoin the world's most decentralized and secure monetary network. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think the US government truly understands what Bitcoin is? Or are they underestimating it and unknowingly walking straight into their own undoing? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you found value in this episode, make sure to like it, share it with a friend, and subscribe so more people can cut through the noise. Thanks for watching, and remember, there is no second best money.